Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Farm and Sea to Campus webinar, Campus Farms as Learning Labs. Thank you so much for joining in today. My name is Maida Ives, and I'm with Book and Plow Farm at Amherst College in Massachusetts, and I'll be facilitating the webinar. And we've got a great set of panelists, and Tanya, Caitlin, and Bridget also part of FINE. And we can go to the next slide, Tanya, thanks. So FINE, or Farm to Institution New England, is a 6-state network of nonprofit, public, and private entities working to transform our food system. And they have a whole host of initiatives that go on. And one of FINE's initiatives is the Farm and Sea to Campus Network. This is a community of higher education and food system stakeholders, and we work together to develop regional supply chains and educate our campus communities. And all of us feel strongly that campus farms are one of the frontline ways to engage campuses in food system efforts. So within the network is the Campus Farm Working Group, and I co-chair this group with Bridget Meeks from Stonehill College. And our aim is to provide an opportunity for conversation about how colleges and universities can forge deeper alliances within our communities to grow a stronger regional food system. And hopefully this working group can grow into a network of support for both existing campus farms and newly developing initiatives. And campus farms serve an important purpose. They're at the intersection of food justice, environmental sustainability, and healthy eating. And they both provide meaningful opportunities for students to participate in food production. The campus farms can also be an on-site learning lab for a range of academic disciplines. And we're really excited to hear from our panelists, Todd McLean, Katrina Light, and Jeremy Oldfield, about the work they're doing on their respective campuses. So we'll hear from each of them, have a Q&A, and then conclude the webinar today. And we hope to finish right at 3. So Zoom webinars offer a few great features to deepen and continue the conversation. At the bottom of your screen are options for chat and Q&A. You may already be seeing some of the chat function happening. So we invite you to introduce yourselves via chat, your name, your institution, and what you're interested in. And during the webinar, you can send messages, including links to the whole group or to individuals. If you have any logistical or technical issues, let us know through chat, and Tanya, FINE's program director, will help you. There's also a Q&A function, and I encourage you to ask questions. At the end of the webinar, we'll take some time to answer a few of them. You can leave questions anonymously, and if you see a question that you like or want to echo, you can vote on it, and it will kind of bump it to higher up on the list. And hopefully the chat and Q&A that develop will spark ideas for future webinars. So thanks again for joining, and now I'll turn it over to our panelists.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Todd McLean, and I'm the farm manager here at the TC3 Farm at Tompkins Cortland Community College. In addition to my duties as farm manager, I'm also an assistant adjunct professor in the Sustainable Farming and Food Systems program here at the college. So the TC3 Farm, our mission is using sustainable and organic practices. We provide the community with the highest quality of fruits and vegetables. The farm will give students the hands-on practical skills needed to operate a successful farm business, as well as give students an intimate connection to their food system and the roles in which they play. The farm was established in 2014. We grow about 3 acres of mixed vegetables and fruit. We grow year-round in one heated greenhouse. We have 3 high tunnels, 2 of them which are movable. We have a barn that houses a classroom for students out here, as well as all of our production needs. We do small-scale shiitake log production, and With our marketing channels is one way that we really think about our community engagement. So we operate a CSA here at the farm that is open not only to the college community, but to our greater community as well. We have a weekly farm stand that takes place on campus, usually starting at the end of May and going all the way through December. We participate in some local plant sales. We give also the opportunity to do some custom seedling growing to some home gardeners and small scale growers that might not have greenhouse space. We sell to campus dining, Cultivare, which is the college's restaurant, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and other area restaurants. And even though we're not certified organic, we use all organic practices on the farm. Here's just a little aerial view of our farm. So up top there, you can see where our greenhouse and hoop houses are. We have a planned orchard area, some more planting ground for us. And then in the lower left there is our main production area. And at the bottom right there are some large solar panels. That's where the college campus is, just below that. So who are the students that are out at the TC3 Farm? Well, most of our students are enrolled in the Sustainable Farming and Food Systems degree. That is part of the college's Farm to Bistro program. And that program is made up of 4 majors, the Sustainable Farming degree, a Culinary Arts degree, a Wine Marketing degree, and a hospitality degree. And in addition to the TC3 Farm, the college has a working restaurant in downtown Ithaca. So students enrolled in the program have 3 farming internships, and they end up spending about 300 hours on the farm. In the fall and the spring, it ends up being around 90 hours a semester. And then in the summer, it is about 135 hours. And in addition to the work that they do on the farm, we connect with our outside community and do weekly field trips to other area farms and food businesses to see the food system in action. And our students are involved in all aspects of our crop production. And here's a list below, or what you're seeing is some of the things. It's definitely not a comprehensive list of some of the activities that they partake in. Working in our greenhouse here. We do about 20 to 25 taps of maple trees in the winter, some transplanting out in our field, some greenhouse seeding, and some transplanting, an upgrade to not being on our hands and knees. We got some Hatfield transplanters and inoculating some logs with some shiitake spawn up in your right there. So in addition to the students who are taking internships out here on the farm, we really try to connect with our campus community and the other professors on campus. So there's many classes that come out to the farm and utilize it for their coursework. So I'm just gonna scroll through here real quick. Go back one, sorry about that. So the first 3 listed there are soil science, agroecology, and integrated pest management. Those are all required courses in the sustainable farming degree. So in addition to their lectures that they have a lab component to all those classes, and they utilize the farm regularly to have a living lab where they can kind of take what they're learning in their lectures and see it in action out on the farm. We collaborate well with environmental science classes, and then the other classes in the Farm to Bistro program come out and utilize the farm as well. So the Culinary Arts program, they have a local foods project that they do at the end of every semester. So they come out and they need to source items locally and seasonally. So we come out and do a farm tour and harvest vegetables for their projects. We get hospitality programs out here. We have English classes, anthropology, photography classes as well come out to the farm. And here's just a quote from one of our professors who I collaborate with on a regular basis, who comes out to the farm with his environmental science classes every semester. So in addition to our campus community, we collaborate with a lot of groups outside of our campus to really showcase the farm and get community involvement. First and foremost, we work a lot with area high schools to come out for farm tours and work projects. Usually in the spring, we host a farm and food career day where we invite area high schools to come out to the farm for a tour, an academic program overview, and then we have a career panel with folks involved with different careers in the food system, just to give folks an idea of what their opportunities are after college or not. We've been a host site for for workshops for area nonprofits. We've had local garden clubs, area restaurants who are doing farm to table, bring their back of the house and front of the house staff out, and we really talk about seasonality and sourcing local and things that go on with that. We always have some community volunteers that just want to get their hands dirty. And another thing that we do is we partner with a local youth employment program as a host site for summer employment for area high school students. That's been really successful for us. And a big thing for us is obviously relationship building. And so some of the things that I try to work on from semester to semester is to collaborate with professors within our environmental science department. How does that work for other classes in the sustainable farming program? And how can we meet their needs and with projects that they want to work on with their students? One thing that I also try to do that's been really successful is to attend at least one faculty meeting a semester, either at the beginning of the semester or at the end of the semester to think about for the following semester, and do a presentation to our faculty about the farm and how the farm can be utilized to enhance their learning outcomes. And there's always constant contact with our area high schools, whether they have an FFA program, Future Farmers of America, and to see how we can collaborate and get folks out here. So we always come across many challenges. First and foremost, scheduling is really hard for us. And part of that is that I have students as part of their internship that I'm responsible for 2 days a week, usually in the mornings, and then trying to work with folks in their class schedule. So that always runs, is something that we're working on. And especially if someone wants a tour or if they just want to utilize the farm as part of a lesson, we work on that and see how we can do. Transportation is an issue. I showed that first slide in the beginning with that aerial view, and campus is pretty close, but we have a big creek and some woods and trails to kind of get through that aren't easily accessible. So the farm is really only accessible by car, and so that could be an issue for some students to get out here. And we're always working on ways to be creative to get students out here. And lastly, we are a working farm. So taking that time out of the farm to do an educational component in addition to the internships, there's always a push and pull there, but we try to think creatively and how to be successful that way. And I always try to get groups who want to come out here to do some sort of work project to help with that aspect of things. And finally, we're always thinking of new ways how we can get more folks engaged, whether they're with the community or with the campus out on the farm. One thing that I'm working on right now, and hopefully for the fall, is working with our sports teams. I've had conversations with our athletic director and some of the coaches over there, and trying to utilize the farm for team building exercises. And you know, there's nothing like team building when you're weeding a bed of carrots or doing some other farm project. And one thing we instituted last fall that was marginally successful is to have campus volunteer days. We were kind of trying a farm Friday that was a volunteer day for a few hours in the morning every Friday to get some folks out, get away from their desks, and get out on the farm and be a part of that aspect of things. And that's something that we're continuing to push. We started it last fall, but we're going to push it a little bit harder this coming fall and later this spring here. And then lastly is to have more on-farm events. Since we've started the farm, we've had 2 dinners. We had one harvest dinner that the farm hosted. And then another dinner we had was for an organization that wanted to do a farm-to-table event. And so for us, that's a really nice way to connect our Farm to Bistro program, to get our culinary arts students involved, and our hospitality students, our beverage students, and of course our farming students. So these are all ways that we're looking forward to engaging our community, and it's always a work in progress. So thank you very much, and I'm going to pass the mic on to Katrina.
Thank you, Todd. I've actually been able to go to the TC3 Farm, and it's quite impressive. A lot to learn from there. I'm just waiting for access to the screen. I think I have it. All right. There I am. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I am the Supervisor of Food and Agricultural Programs at Bard College. So while I'm not the farm coordinator, I do oversee the farm and other food and ag programs on campus. And you can find us at BartEats and Bard Farm if you want to follow along and where we go in the future. All right, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a heads up. When we were doing a run through earlier, I realized that some of my photos are a little pixelated. I guess that comes with taking pictures with your phone and not a real camera, so sorry about that. All right, so Bard College is located in the Hudson Valley. We're about 2 hours north of New York City, and I've been here for about 4 years. When I tell people what I do, they're both surprised that we have a farm program, and they're also surprised that a job like mine exists at a mostly art school. So while our school is associated with the arts, I personally hope that one day when I say Bard College, someone will say, "Well, what an amazing farm you have," or is that the school where you can take a class on fermentation? So those are my hopes. Oh, now I'm not able to move over. All right. So our farm was founded in 2012, and prior to that, Bard had a compost pile and a community garden. The interest to start a farm really came from students wanting to have a dedicated growing space and to serve produce to the dining hall. Our Dean of Social Action, Paul Marienthal, had met a young farmer that year, John Paul Sleva, and he decided to take up this project. The farm is located on North Campus and is about a 10-minute walk to the main dining hall and Central Campus. A few dorms even have this view out their window. So the Bard Farm is about 1.25 acres, so they're roughly the size of a football field. And the entire college campus right now is shy of 1,000 acres. And we now actually house 2 farms, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So as I mentioned before, we're not a land grant institution, we're not an ag school. And it took a lot of convincing to the Board of Trustees and upper administration to give this project the green light. When they did give approval, it came with a stipulation of self-funding. Students organized a garage sale, a music festival, and a Kickstarter to make this happen. And I always note that we're no longer allowed to do crowdsourcing for such programs after this. So once it was evident the students were serious, a couple of dedicated staff members and community members went to work. This is a picture from the barn raising that happened in 2014. With the barn raising came electricity, a washing station, a cooler, a tool shed, and an event space. And this actually happened during our freshman orientation, so a lot of freshmen were involved as well. One of the requirements of the farm was that really shaped operations is the need for it to support itself. The goal is not only to be able to pay for seeds and growing supplies and student labor, we also have to pay for the farm coordinator salary. This has meant that a large focus of each season has been focused on maximizing production. This is our weekly farm stand in the picture, and it's held at the campus center on Thursdays, but really most of the profits come from our main buyer. We are growing on a small plot, and we produce about 20,000 pounds a year. That's pretty much the max we can do. The poundage plays a key role. As we plan each season, we're often asking ourselves, should we plant tomatoes or chard, which is heavier, what will make us more money? We've tried balance being diversified while paying attention to the bottom line. Chartwells is our dining service provider, and they agreed from the beginning to buy everything that we grow, which is really helpful because often our produce doesn't look perfect. We do have flea beetles and things that I'm sure you guys deal with as well. So it doesn't just come down to brass tacks. When John Paul was making the original farm plan, he wanted to make sure we had some buzz and novelty. We are currently the only farm in the Hudson Valley growing cranberries, and we harvest by hand. Often we get a question about, people assume that the bogs look like ocean spray commercials, but we assure them that this is our cranberry bog, and the students do all the harvesting. We are also able to charge a pretty high price for having this niche product, and we can sell these at local farm stand as well as to local restaurants. Oh, there should be another photo. Oh well, I lost a photo there, but speaking of, oh, where did it go? So we've been fortunate to partner with a local beekeeper who takes care of our hives, splits the honey, and teaches students about apiaries. This picture, and there was another picture here that showed Adam actually catching a swarm of bees that happened a couple years ago, which was pretty exciting for the students. And as many of you know who run campus farms, any opportunity to create a little less work for ourselves and to partner is always appreciated and beneficial. Over the last 8 years, we've also experimented with tapping a few maples on campus, as well as growing hops, which we sell to a local brewery. For all the hops that we grow, we get about 1 keg of beer in exchange, but we do serve that at our yearly harvest event, and students get a big kick out of it. So economies of scale, but also it's important to have these one-offs and to celebrate. So Bard's motto is a place to think. I think it's also a place to innovate. This is a picture of the old pool on campus, which is next to our local waterfall and swimming hole. So in the left picture, you can see it in the 70s, and then on the right is kind of what it had become, a place for graffiti and hanging out. So it sat vacant for several decades until it was finally repurposed. John Paul decided to convert this into our mushroom farm. We're a large campus, as I mentioned, and we also have an arboretum and lots of trees. So the horticulture department gives us these logs, and we inoculate them and store them here. We've been growing oysters and shiitakes, and they're usually one of the first harvests of our growing season. So where are we now? Our original mission was about raising consciousness, about health and food and the environment, and to really just train students how to farm on a small scale. The same year the farm was founded, the school also signed into the Real Food Challenge, committing the dining service to source at least 20% of food from sustainable sources. The following year, the BartEats working group was created to connect some of those dots, and the farm really was the catalyst for these programs, and I also say the farm was really the catalyst for my job to be created as well. So our objectives have always been about fostering connection. They've been about fostering a connection between students and the land, to provide links between classroom experiences and hands-on work, to really model different ways of producing food, and to serve as a resource to the community and to be a teaching tool. So over 200 students have been hired to work on the farm through work study since its inception, but countless others have visited. And when we look at our objectives and start to reflect on what we've done well and what we can improve on, we really focus on academic integration. So we don't have a food systems or agricultural related major or minor. However, our environmental and urban studies department is beginning to fill that need. So currently about 3 to 4 classes interact with the farm a year, and it's typically in the format of a field trip. So this is a place where we see there's a lot of room for improvement. I hear Todd speak about all these classes, and I'm a little bit jealous, but I think that some of us who have farms are on schools that aren't food and ag minded. So there is a lot of room to grow. And how do we start to have that integration process? So the picture on the left is of a painting class that comes to the farm each fall. They're not learning about farm methodologies, but they are appreciating the aesthetic value, and that is important too. The photo on the right, I love these kids. These are from Bard's preschool. And so they also come and work for a day or two in the fall. So as I mentioned, where we have room to grow is really around engagement, both on campus as well as with our surrounding community. We're currently developing a mentorship program with an urban farm that hires high school students. Instead of the field trip model, we're hoping to foster long-term relationships and connections, and to be able to learn from each other. We're also planning out some test spots to explore carbon sequestration through no-till methods, and we're looking at installing high tunnels and other plans for season extension. Up to this point, we've been growing with organic certification in mind, but have never moved on this as we've had one main vendor. However, this year we are making plans to certify and really be a model for this type of practice. On the academic side, last year we created an interdisciplinary food cluster, which has been amazing. It's a group of faculty and staff tasked to incorporate ideas around food and agriculture into classes and to bring more speakers and food and ag related events to campus. And I really feel like this group has kind of caused a major shift. This past fall, we had our first agricultural salon series and posed the question, can the Northeast feed itself, and should it? We brought in academics, farmers, and practitioners to answer the question. This fall, we'll host a symposium on antibiotics, the microbiome, and farming, as well as another symposium about traditional foodways. So it's evident there really is an undercurrent that is getting stronger. Where we have made some headway is by creating and connecting other on-campus programs. We view our BartEats working group as our food systems umbrella. We operate several mission-based programs that work to strengthen the larger system by focusing on sourcing, operations, education, advocacy, while always keeping in mind measuring and accountability. One of our successful programs has been the Teaching Kitchen, where peer educators teach other students to cook, and we do this both in dining halls, in our dining halls, as well as in dorms, as kind of like a dinner party format. Through the awareness the farm has brought to campus, we've really been able to launch campaigns around the importance of properly sorting compost and food waste, although we haven't perfected this yet. If anyone out there has figured out how to zero out their contaminants, please get in touch. Love to hear how you did it. Our food recovery program consists of a team of 15 faculty and staff members that drive leftover food from the main dining hall to a food pantry every day of the working week. We have also cut back disposables by providing each first year and transfer student that comes to Bard with a first year sustainability kit. And we use the farm produce really to educate about seasonality and the environmental impacts of our food choices. According to the surveys that we do, student opinions around the importance of sustainable food systems has really started to shift. This may be from our programs, or it may be from a larger societal consciousness of change. Either way, I see a lot of hope in the future around understanding and personal commitment. So this year we hired our first farm coordinator since John Paul. Her name is Rebecca Yoshino. Hi, Rebecca, if you're on this webinar. Together, we designed a new course around the role of campus farms. So we're giving our students an opportunity to visit and learn about a variety of nonprofit farm models located on schools, colleges, hospitals, and even in correctional facilities. So through these case studies and projects, the students will help us create and develop a new mission. We'll look at our objectives and create new objectives and a direction for our food and agricultural ventures. So our goal is really to increase our impact not only on the students that work on the farm, but impact on the larger community as well. So that's exciting. All right, so this is my final slide, and I did want to get back to that, what I mentioned earlier is, remember when I said we have 2 farms on campus? Well, in the winter of 2015, BART purchased the Montgomery Place estate, which really made us almost a 1,000-acre campus. So with the estate came an orchard that has been in production since the 1700s. With the purchase came a historic farm stand, and with the purchase came farmers Doug and Talia Taylor. So these 2 are a wealth of knowledge and have been living and working the land for the past 30 years. They will continue to own and operate their business, which will continue to be on BART's campus. And every week we've been dreaming up ways to collaborate and to increase learning opportunities for students. So we're really excited about what's coming down the road. In the last couple of years, we've had class visits and led several workshops in their amazing working kitchen. And we've had workshops around cheese making and kimchi and applesauce making. And in the fall, we do apple tastings and learn about heirloom varieties. My personal favorite apple is called the Keepsake. If you haven't tried it, you should. Another part of this partnership has really been with dining services. They, in addition to buying everything from the Bard farm, they're now buying Montgomery Place Orchard's seconds. So anything that's kind of deemed not pretty enough for the farm stand ends up in our dining hall and is part of our Perfectly Imperfect program. So this fall, the fall of 2019, we'll be offering our first full semester cider making class through the biology department, and it'll be taught at the Montgomery Place Orchards. So our dream one day, and maybe if I say it here, it'll come true, is to have a cidery on campus as well as a food lab where we can teach classes, but also utilize the space to preserve and create more Bard Farm products. So overall, our goal for the future is to keep growing produce, to keep educating students, and slowly but surely increase campus and community engagement. We're looking forward to our 8th season, and we welcome you to get in touch or come visit. Thank you so much. I'll turn this over. All right. Jeremy, you're up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Oldfield. I'm the Field Academic Manager at the Sustainable Food Program at Yale. I kind of have 2 business cards. One says Farm Manager, one says Manager of Field Academics, and I give different business cards to different people depending on which crowd I happen to be in, which kind of maybe shows a little bit about the many different roles that a campus farm might be able to play to different groups of stakeholders and constituents on campus and beyond. So I work for the Sustainable Food Program, which was founded around 2003. That's when the Yale farm was had its ground broken. I have been here for 7 years. This is the beginning of my 8th year, which when you think about juggling an ambitious crop plan that has a bunch of flowers, herbs, vegetables, over 70 varieties on a 1-acre farm, a third of which is just grassy pathways. We call it our pasture. A third of this farm is kind of berms and perennial zones that we've divided into certain agroforestry places, certain culinary berms. We have hops, we have asparagus, we have some interesting projects kind of like slowly growing over time, legacy of former students from the forestry school and from Yale College who have come through. there are a lot of balls in the air on the Yale farm at any given moment. I want to talk today a little bit about some of our basic programming and some of our kind of collaborations with faculty from over 15 different departments at Yale. A major focus of mine recently has been to use our 1 acre campus farm to make teaching and learning at Yale kind of pop. Rather than teaching 4-credit courses myself, that has taken the form of reaching out to faculty members across the university. And I'll share a partial list of some of the class visits that have kind of come to fruition, and use this farm as a resource, kind of like you might envision a library or a museum on campus, a place where intangible, invisible concepts in the classroom can kind of become inhabitable, workable, where it can literally get under your fingernails, some of the lessons that we're going for. And we're finding that is, at the moment, having a lot of value at Yale. Here's just kind of a day in the life of the Yale farm. You can see traffic going by back there. We are at an urban farm. We are on Yale Central Campus, and so we are accessible with a short walk from downtown New Haven. It's about a 10-minute walk away. And so even though we have been offered land that is, much more abundant than 1 acre further away, we're finding that we want to just keep deepening what we can do with a 1 acre that is accessible to campus. That is just where some of the momentum is with us, is that some of the programming that I'm going to be talking about depends on us being super accessible on a Friday afternoon, for instance, or close enough to campus so that a 50-minute seminar can meet on the farm, do a fun activity, get an interesting tailored tour, and get back to campus in time. So I'm kind of talking from that context today. But I'll just leave this slide up as I give you a few more bits of information about the Yale Sustainable Food Program. The farm fits into our mission in this way. We say that we are on the farm, in the classroom, and around the world. The Yale Sustainable Food Program cultivates food literate leaders. And so there's that's us bending what a farm can do to the constituency that we're working with, which is a university that is known for graduating, leaders. And so, right off the bat in our mission statement, we're trying to do our best to tie our the value of what a campus farm can be to some of the core mission, of the institution that we happen to be housed in. And so we do this, I'll maybe just say a quick word about on the farm, in the classroom, and around the world. On the farm, this is our 1 acre campus farm. We run a summer internship that's called the Lazarus Summer Internship. That is an 11-week internship from basically the beginning of June to the middle of August, where we do a bunch of learn to farm work. We have 6 interns, Yale undergraduates every year, who are stewarding the acre, welcoming visitors to the farm, and finding ways that the work that they do on this 1 acre and its context. So we are on a hill in southern New England. We are within shouting distance of the Long Island Sound. We have an urban clientele, so we are selling every Saturday between early May and mid-December. We are selling at a farmer's market in downtown New Haven in Worcester Square. Those are students who are selling there. We have been dealt, the hand that we have been dealt by the glaciers is very thin topsoil. We can see on a clear day, we can, from the farm, see across the Long Island Sound to Long Island, where the glaciers squeegeed all the topsoil away from New England many thousands of years ago. We hope that we can use, and this is kind of something that we do out loud in front of everybody who's visiting, we hope to separate principles of sustainable agriculture from recipes for sustainable agriculture. We're trying to sort of say, come to this 1 acre farm see how we are scratching our heads and trying to make an ambitious crop plan work. Don't leave thinking that you then know how to farm, but leave knowing that you know how to ask better questions about how people are farming in their context. Okay, so I think that that was kind of a priority for us, is to look at the context dependency and to use a 1 acre farm as an invitation to kind of get your feet muddy, get your hands dirty, get your back working a little bit, and be able to ask better questions of people in the field. So farming as an occasion for listening, farming as an occasion for opening up curiosity in food systems beyond our gates. We want to make sure that this 1 acre farm doesn't fall too much into a sort of navel gazing. We don't want the idea of homesteading to be the primary myth that we are generating, but more of how food systems are interdependent, how histories are from groups that are not always mentioned or cited, Native American groups in the Northeast, for instance, how histories and peoples have been, and the legacy of these groups are playing out in our current food system today. Anyways, so some of the ways that we do this is we run a harvest pre-orientation program. This is for first years who are just arriving to Yale in the sort of late August. Everyone's nervous. They arrive on the Yale farm. These are people who signed up for our program. And they kind of have a lunch at our pizza oven. They quickly get into buses and go off in groups to anywhere from like 9 to 11 regional farms in the area, and spend a week camping and helping farmers. And it actually is like the perfect week for regional farmers to be receiving labor. It's, late August in New England is kind of the time where you have too much in the fields and you are looking for hands to help. And so right off the bat, we try to sort of set the tone when you're coming to Yale to give you the option to get to know an intimate group of other first years while helping out on campus farms. And it kind of situates students in their region a little bit in a way that is pretty exciting, at least to me, this idea of before learning your dorm room, where your dorm room is, learning about some of the ways that food is grown in that area. We also, on our farm, we run a seed to salad program. This is a program with New Haven Public Schools, where every fall and every spring, students, second grade students from several different area public schools come in and are led by volunteers and coordinators through our farm. They plant seeds on their first day, and they are eating delicious salads on their final day. And they are undergoing a sort of cool science curriculum for 6 weeks on both of those semesters. We find that's really popular with our students who are both farm curious and in the education studies concentration at Yale, which is a sort of multidisciplinary academic program here at the university. We also run a Chewing the Fat speaker series, which is, we call it Chewing the Fat. We are bringing in thought leaders and innovators and representatives and social justice advocates in the food system from a diverse range of locations and communities, inviting people to speak at our farm under our pavilion, inviting people to speak down the hill, as we say it, on Central Campus. And we are, we also run in a sort of like around the world way, we run a global food fellowship. So sometimes when a student comes to, maybe like a way that a student at Yale could interact with the Yale Sustainable Food Program and the Yale Farm over their time here is like arrive on campus, go work on a pre-orientation program in a regional farm, come apply for a position as a farm manager, start joining our volunteer work days, which we actually no longer call volunteer work days. We run 3 Yale Farm open work days during the week, which are staffed by paid student farm managers who I get to meet with once a week during the academic year, Tuesday afternoons, Friday afternoons, Sunday afternoons. We used to call these volunteer days. We noticed that more and more interesting and worthy urban farming operations were popping up around New Haven. And we decided to respond by taking volunteering off of the sort of out of the semantics of how the community could engage with the farm, rather visiting. And that's just semantics, but the experience has not changed at all. But we're trying to sort of let groups know who want volunteer hours signed off for, or community service hours signed off for, that Yale University does not necessarily need your, if you have 30 people who want to volunteer and get credit for that, there are these other places to go to. So just one way that we're trying to be a good neighbor and not be a threat or something that could threaten to eclipse other operations that are sprouting up in the community. We also, so I mentioned that we run a global food fellowship. Like this theoretical student could work for the Yale Farm, manage work days for a year or two. This student could join our Lazarus summer internship. Here are a couple shots. I was pretty excited about this guy, Mike Marsland, who was able to capture this student in the middle of broad forking. The Lazarus summer internship that we run is a kind of a lovely 11-week sort of best of the best of New England time experience on the Yale Farm. We're able to, the first day, everybody's putting tomatoes in and beginning the sort of vertical tunnel growing of tomatoes. And we are spending 40 hours a week together, 5 days a week. We are selling at the farmer's market. We are tending to the Yale Farm. But about half of that summer internship time is actually spent off farm. We are using that summer internship as a way to keep learning about how the context works on the Yale Farm, and then immediately going and visiting regional CSA farms, an ocean farm in the Long Island Sound, where students get to harvest or participate in the harvest of sugar kelp, of oysters, and get to learn about invasive shore crabs and stuff like that. We visit a food terminal that supplies most of Yale hospitality and Yale dining's food up in Hartford, Connecticut. We try to see food moving at different flows and at different scales. We have a Lazarus summer reader for the Lazarus summer internship, which is this interesting collection of popular readings, like things from the New Yorker or Harper's or Jezebel, and more academic readings, maybe a chapter from Jim Scott's Seeing Like a State, maybe we have a neat collection of academic readings, and we're finding that as we farm together, it is nice to carve out deliberate time to gather around a table and discuss a reading that we did that week, a common reading that we did. We used to kind of leave that up to when we're reading the carrots, we shall find time to discuss food systems issues, and we did, but we were also talking about shows and movies and stuff like that, and we're finding that being deliberate about this has been helpful for us. The Lazarus summer internship is certainly the closest thing that we have towards a sort of learn to farm sort of program. I think that one of the services that any farm offers any campus is, but I feel like especially here in New Haven, a membrane seems to inevitably form between the students at a campus and community members who are not associated with that university. In New Haven, that's not uncommon, right? There are sort of town gown divides of two people living parallel lives that don't really intersect very much. We're finding that by showing up at a downtown Saturday morning farmers market for about 2/3 of the year with student representatives selling our wares, that there is this moment of that membrane thinning, and that one of the services, both with our open work days where we welcome anybody from the community to come, and because we're kind of centrally located in New Haven, you get a lot of people on our work days, and then also selling at these farmers markets. There is a moment where that membrane thins out, and there is a real kind of horizontal conversation that is happening between Yale students and community members. It's kind of neat because there is a little bit of a sort of mystique to, oh, you got into Yale, you must, do everything right. But there's never that mystique around food. It's never like, oh, you got into Yale and therefore you probably know the best carrot. And we've been really enjoying the way that food is kind of an equalizer. And I think our students are craving that type of experience. And so in turn, we kind of go back to our administration and we show them examples and testimonials from these students, and kind of leverage some of just literally what a farm does for survival anyways. And we tell a different story about that and maybe get a little bit more support, and maybe find ways of making this farm and its natural flows of vegetables to market. We kind of leverage that for renewed support. We receive a sort of cocktail of support. We have some from private supporters, and our budgets are partially supported by private supporters and partially supported by the Yale administration. Our organization is located not next to dining, not in some sort of environmental science school. We are in Yale College. So we are like in the Yale College Dean's office. And so rather than having a sort of, a sort of like, let's use this farm for exclusively environmental education, or let's use this farm for sort of tours for Yale hospitality, which is Yale dining, for their practices or something like that. We are mostly encouraged to make this farm relevant to all of the liberal arts. Yale College is basically the representative of all the liberal arts departments at Yale. So it's kind of a liberal arts farm. And speaking of the liberal arts, I would love to sort of show, this is a partial list. It's a little bit grainy, but this is, these are some of the courses that we have brought onto the Yale farm to, more often than not, we have a course come for one of its course sessions in a semester. There have been examples of courses coming for 8 successive weeks, starting in the beginning of September and going through October, and using our pavilion and table space, which I'll show you, which comes a little bit later in the slideshow, as a seminar space, and then kind of can come out into the field for walks, for narratives, and for tasks that might fit in with the syllabus that day. So this is kind of like a central part of my position is corresponding with individual faculty members here at the university and finding where a farm visit might fit in with their syllabus. So there's a lot of like me sending people crop plans and faculty members sending me their syllabi. It's kind of amazing how you can find some interesting stuff here. I was hoping to leave this up for just a quick second so that you can sort of see a little bit of the range of courses that have been coming, and their departments, and then go into 2 examples, and then tell you a little bit about the value of pizza to our operation, and then get offline, or just let everybody else ask questions and talk. I wanted to say that one of the strategies that we have employed to reach out to faculty members at this university, is to, one of them is just literally cold calls. Notice just me sending an email to a faculty member who just has food all over their course description, and sort of saying, let's find a way for the farm to work for you. Come up, it'll be a neat way, your students will love it, and we'll have a neat tour, and there might even be a snack involved. Another way is to basically take the awesome committed students who make up our workforce. My hands are very rarely dirty. I need to remind everybody that there are moments in the year, like the beginning of summer vacation and spring break, where my hands get very calloused and dirty, but students run our operations, and they are so committed, and oftentimes they are history of science and medicine students, majors, or sometimes they are Russian literature majors, or ethnicity, race, and migration majors. And these students know professors who just might be, it's sort of like I know a professor who's super cool, and who is probably would be willing to take you up on a course visit to the Yale farm. And so I will usually cite that student in an email, and that has been where a lot of these have come from. And finally, new faculty who are coming into this university have a little orientation in the end of August, and that orientation is about 3 days long. And on the third night, we have kind of shimmied ourselves into being hosts for a new faculty orientation pizza dinner on the Yale farm. So this new faculty group comes, and they're up to the farm, and there's about anywhere from 80 to 120 new faculty at Yale every year that come up to the farm, enjoy pizza that is cooked by students, enjoy other food that is brought by Yale Dining, and hear a little bit from our director, meet our staff, meet some of our students, and we just kind of try to position ourselves in that moment when faculty are coming to Yale and sort of saying, how am I going to make my teaching pop here? And we try to be there being like, hey, I've got a cool idea for you. So speaking of ideas, this is a picture of Maria Trumpler, who she has blue pants on, second from the left. Professor Maria Trumpler, Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, teaches a class called Women, Food, and Culture, where we visit our wheat field on the Yale farm. So one thing that you would notice if you visited our site is that we grow a bunch of market vegetables. We want to have enough roots and greens and tomatoes to have a good showing at farmers market every week in New Haven, but that we are not necessarily maxing out our 1/3 of an acre of growing space for consumable vegetables. We have what I like to call the world's smallest wheat field on this 1 acre patch in New Haven, Connecticut. But it winds up being a heavy hitter when it comes to a farm's relevance to basically a lot of cultural, anthropological, historical classes. And so this wheat field right now, this is me kind of sweaty, discussing 4 different wheats that we're growing next to each other. One of them is a ancient wheat called called einkorn. We look at that, we talk about the pivoting of human society from a sort of hunter and gatherer society to let's start growing these seeds and let's try to breed them into a grass plant that holds onto its seeds instead of scattering its seeds. Let's breed away this brittle rachis. And so all of a sudden you have people in a gender studies class looking at the rachis, which is the little spine that holds all these seeds together on a wheat seed head. And it feels like we're building bridges. Next to that, we have a pretty neat Ukrainica wheat, which is basically growing. It's a variety that was very likely growing in parts of Russia and the Ukraine when Tolstoy was writing Anna Karenina. It's big. It's right behind my head in this picture. It's wily. It lodges easily, which means it falls down and kind of like bends and snaps and falls along the ground easily. It represents a moment where tractors had not hit the scene very well. You could not drive a combine over that. You'd probably need to have serfs and different peasant populations working your fields. You would probably want to have a bunch of animals around to feed all of this amazing stock to. I'm just taking you on this little example of ways that you can use the architecture of agricultural plants to infer things from the societies and the historical moments when they were when these varieties were popular. And so thatching roofs with some of the biomass that is not seed heads on the Ukrainica, all of that kind of comes up. And then right in the foreground of this picture is a modern dwarf club wheat, which you might find, it's called Cara wheat, or Cara wheat. You would probably see it in eastern Washington, growing on the side, growing in fields of many acres. Compared to the other wheats, this grows just like a crisp, flat tabletop, perfect for, it all ripens on the exact same plane, perfect for a combine to come by and harvest it with, capital intensive methods, not necessarily socially intensive methods. And we talk about the ways that this particular club wheat goes towards hostess and like sponge cake and pancakes and cookie batter, and does not have the type of gluten that Ukrainica behind me does to hold on to things like that. So these are just a couple jumping off points that we use to use the architecture of a farm to make certain things visible, and people are tasting underripe wheat berries as we go. Not to have both of my examples talk about wheat, but this is kind of, it's kind of fun. This is on the other end of the wheat growing. This is basically October. A class called Ecology and Russian Culture comes to the farm. You can sort of see a PowerPoint presentation in the background. They use our pavilion tables and stuff to hold their seminar. And this is us doing a very sort of using 2018 tools to do a quick threshing and winnowing of wheat.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey.
This is Maida. Just checking in on time. I don't want to interrupt the threshing process, but I want to make sure we have a chance to share with folks the very end of how they can stay involved.
Absolutely.
Do you want to give a final kind of touch landing point for Yale Farm, and then we can wrap up, but surely make available kind of the rest of your information following through?
Yeah, Maida, and I apologize for going on and on. I haven't been on the farm for a while because it's so cold, so you can see I'm just overflowing, and I apologize to everybody involved. I'm sorry to be long-winded here. But we are finding that threshing and winnowing came at a lot of value to multiple classes at Yale, including the Russian literature departments. So would be happy to talk more about that in other contexts. This is our pizza oven, and the point of this slide with Emma, who's an amazing Yale undergraduate student cook, is just that we've been finding a whole lot of value for attracting crowds to start to get interested in your programming by having a wood-fired oven on your farm. This is something that our work days on Fridays during the school year are accompanied by a 4 p.m. pizza moment where students are making about 60 pizzas that are free for the community to come. And as long as they're here, they listen to something we call Need to Know. It is undergraduate students presenting to the community on the farm about an academic related food systems question. So this, Michael, is, for instance, talking about malt and the potential for New England to grow its own sweeteners through malting, and some of the pros and cons of that utopian vision. So just wanted to emphasize that the pavilion space, the table space, and the oven space that we have been a major carrot to bring people to our farm. Promising free pizza has never been a bad strategy for increasing some of your relevance and getting a diverse population to come out to your farm. And there I am, and I will give up the floor.
Thanks so much. Thank you all for presenting on your farms, and thank you, Jeremy, for racing to the end there. We have a couple of questions. I know it's now 3:02, so in our chat, Tanya mentioned that there's some upcoming ways to get involved, and so I'll just share a little bit about the information you need to know, and then feel free to stay for a moment of Q&A for things you may want to know from our farmer panelists. We do have FINE has a few webinars coming up, and they're listed on this slide, and you can feel free to attend them yourselves or also share out with different partners on campus. Perhaps the dining center wants to hear about the product spotlight, or a team could come together to discuss the Food Vision Prize. So please stay in touch with FINE for these upcoming webinars. And then specific to the Campus Farm Working Group, a few members and other campus farms, myself included, will be presenting at the Farm to Institution Summit at UMass this April. And at that summit on the Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m., we'll have an open space session for campus for Farm and Sea to Campus interested folks to come gather and talk more and meet each other, and can even break off to talk specifically about campus farms. So I really encourage people to register for that. And then Bridget and I are working on developing a database of campus farms with the myriad titles we can use, from field academics to manager of operations, and more kind of data about each farm, so that we can learn from each other and share how important the work we're doing is with our campus partners to garner more support. And of course, we're also working on another campus farm summit for 2020. And so if anyone wants to be involved in any of that or has other ideas, please email Tanya at Fine, and you can join in on some of our working group conversations or calls, because we really want to expand the network to support campus farms and all that they do. So thank you again to everyone for joining. If you want to stay on the line, we can answer a few questions. I'm going to just watch and see if everyone drops off right now, but if not, I'd love to ask Todd and Katrina each some of the questions that came up as we were going. Great, I'm going to go for it. Todd,
Yes.
one question we had come up was, has the farm modified its operations in any way based on requests or relationships with the professors you work with on campus? And after you answer, Katrina and Jeremy, if you have things to add, feel free to add those in.
Not too much, but we actually are currently are doing some changing just to collaborate with our culinary arts program a little bit more. And we actually found out yesterday afternoon, myself and working with the culinary arts, the lead culinary arts instructor, developed a course that got approved called Principles in Food Preservation. And that's going to change. We're going to be focused on some value-added products and different preservation methods that both the farm and students working in kitchens can do. So we are going to be changing our crop plan a little bit in terms of what we grow to cater towards some value-added products.
And I can jump in, Katrina here. Yeah, we have this year partnered with some biology professors who are really interested in carbon sequestration. So we're doing some plot sites where we're doing no-till and tracking kind of microbes and root growth. So that's exciting. And then not one other thing that came to mind that's not necessarily connected to faculty and staff, but with administration, we have not brought animals to our farm because of a strong inclination to not go that direction. So it does, yeah, I think we're constantly being impacted by the culture of the school, the needs of the faculty, and so it's not just student interest. We do have a lot of balancing to do.
And Jeremy, I'd ask, since you were talking about the wheat with your Russian literature course, whose initial idea was that? Did you think of that? Was it a student? Was it the professor?
Yeah, so Professor Maria Trumpler, who was actually pictured in one of those photos, she worked with the farm actually prior to my arrival to bring a couple of versions of wheat to basically to grow and bake with for a different class, and then that wound up kind of having wheat wound up kind of getting around the faculty members, and people started wanting to interact with it in the field and not just in its sort of final form.
Great. And we had one more question from the audience. So Katrina, specifically directed to you, Katrina. And so I know that the first question was how the creation of the farm began, and it sounded like it really was student-driven, kind of community sourcing funds for the farm. Now that it's been established, are students paid to work there, and how many students work there over the course of the season?
Great question. So with both the Bard Farm and BartEats, we believe in paying students. So we mostly do work study, and in the summers we have kind of a stipend where we provide housing and food and a weekly pay. So yes, all of our students are always paid, and that's a model that we stand pretty true to. And we do always also have a full-time staff member. And I think that when you talk to various campus farms, they're probably going to emphasize having some sort of coordinator, manager position. That's really important to kind of see things through, do all the ordering, do a lot of the work, because even though, we hire about 50 students a year, some of those are repeats, but 50 positions a year. And this is all unskilled labor. So often when the students are out there weeding, the farm coordinator is out there tilling and doing some of the heavy lifting. So yes, we do have staff, we do have a lot of students, but hopefully, we're always hoping that some folks kind of get the bug and keep doing this work. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. And I want to just emphasize to all of the attendees that, again, we hope to continue this whole conversation. So if questions pop up that you didn't ask today, funneling them through Tanya at thefarmtoinst.org is a great way to stay in touch directly with the panelists. The last question I had was, so we create these campus farms, and it starts with some magical chicken and egg combination of student interest and the capacity to develop a program. Once things are going, do you have metrics or a system to determine whether or not an element of the farm is successful? I imagine there's a large investment went into the mushroom pool. How did you determine to go that route or keep doing it? Or Jeremy, how did you decide to keep having the photography class come out to the farm? I'm sorry, Todd, you had the photography class.
Yeah. So for us, with our metrics, we are trying to operate this farm as a business. So, increasing production and increasing sales each year is definitely a goal. So trying to increase our CSA membership. And then in terms of, having classes come out here, really, we've always kind of had this, from a college standpoint, from a learning standpoint, this 30,000 foot view of how can the farm enhance learning in all disciplines. So, we're open to having, any and all classes come out as long as they find that the farm can fit their learning outcomes. So that's what works for us.
That's a really good question. And our school is very focused on metrics because, as I mentioned, the farm we've had to prove ourselves throughout these 8 years. And so we also measure kind of how much we're producing, how much things cost. And we're really innovative. So that the pool project actually, we did it all with volunteers and used logs that are already here. So a lot of we kind of pull things out of the hat often because that funding is important, and we don't have a donor specifically that's really interested in food and ag yet, but hopefully one day. But yeah, keeping metrics, we do a lot of surveys and just try to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on with our student body as well as with faculty and staff.
Yeah, I would just add that over at the Sustainable Food Program at Yale, we've been kind of trying to divorce, or there's so many different metrics you can use. Boots on the ground, the amount of visitors you got that year, the amount of classes you had out at the farm, the amount of food that you've produced and stuff like that. And just because we're on such a small farm and you can't create the amazing numbers that Katrina has, and I'm sure Todd has too, we're trying to go from metrics to testimonials, and we're trying to use kind of faces of maybe a graduating student who did our programming on the farm, then applied for one of our global fellowships or something like that, and kind of using that as its own kind of stand-in for a metric, and seeing where that gets us. We're in the early days of that, and I'm going to try to see, but I feel like you sometimes as a campus farmer, you try to find the metrics that are going to make you glow, and right now that's testimonials and looking at students sort of almost like changing over time and developing over time has been part of our strategy for that.
Awesome. Well, I certainly want to thank you all again for your thoughtful answers and presentations. I personally am so excited to start seeding in the greenhouse with students and start the farming portion of the process over again. And want to again encourage everyone to share links to their own campus farms, or if you're starting a campus farm or have a different relationship to this work, share your contact, your organization and your contact through the chat so we can all stay in touch. And again, thank you for participating. Thank you for presenting. And we'll hope to see you at the Farm to Institution Summit or at future upcoming Fine and Campus Farm events. Really appreciate you all, and good luck with the start of spring.